Salutations everybody, it is Maddie here today with 10 little details you may have missed from Cyberpunk 2077's gameplay reveal. This is the gameplay that myself and Vinny had seen at E3 2018. Hopefully now you understand why we called it Game of the Show. Let's get into the hidden details now, starting off with number 1, the ammo counter and firing modes. Now you'll notice in the opening gameplay that when V pulls out her pistol and she is engaging in firefights, that there is no ammo counter on the bottom left and there isn't a single firing mode. However, after we get the subdermal grip from Victor, who is the Ripper Doc, we'll notice the addition of a ammo counter, which the commentator over the gameplay noted, as well as firing modes, both of which are labeled on the bottom left corner of the gameplay. An example of alternate firing modes are the shotgun, which we had a simple destructive blast which would obliterate enemies, versus one that you could charge up, see an enemy through a wall, and destroy them that way, so you could remain in cover and still harm enemies. Number 2 is NPC names. Now this one may sound like a bit of a nitpick and something negative, which I know is hard to imagine with such a phenomenal gameplay reveal, but it's just something I do want to point out because a lot of what this game works towards is immersion, is keeping the player engaged and locomotion, excellent pacing. So when you're walking around Night City, you'll notice a lot of people called NC Resident, Urban Freak, Street Vendor, Corpo Rat, Dirt Girl, etc. But when you see a person of importance, it sticks out like a sore thumb, and I feel in a small, tiny way, it does hurt the game. The reason I say this is because when we look at, for example, Stefan, who we're walking by, the second I saw the name Stefan, which you can see on stream, I instantly knew it was a person of importance, just based off his name, where the game does so well at keeping you attached to the universe, suspending your disbelief, and things like this, where it's not kind of following the steps of Watch Dogs, which gave every person in its world a sense of identity, a personality, a background, albeit tiny. That very suspension of disbelief could actually end up being broken for some gamers. There is hope though, because we had looked at the Corpo agent who V had tried to scan, but she had failed to do so unless she had an upgraded Kuroshi, which is the optical scanner she obtained from Victor, the Ripper Doc. So perhaps if you upgrade this more, you could scan a random resident and get a little bit of background info on them. It reminds me a little bit of how JRPGs run, where for example, if you get into a conversation, you see a little sprite pop up, you see some additional animation, you instantly know this is a person of importance and that they are going to play a part in the story. The same thing applies here with Cyberpunk. The second I see a main name, I already know it's going to be someone who's offering me a quest of some kind. It's a video game way of finding out things. It's not a way of finding out in the Cyberpunk universe. Do you get what I'm saying? Very small nitpick, but still something I wanted to point out, as this game has so much focus on getting immersion right. So now we'll get into how exactly they do that, starting off with resistances and damage types. Now when scanning Victor, we see that resistance stats will pop up for bullets and what looks to be fire, poison, and electricity. Later in the demo, we see V's stat page, and those very resistances are naturally ballistics, but also thermal, EMP, and chemical. We do see thermal in action in the mini boss fight against Royce. It's exactly what we expected, something along the lines of heat / laser attacks, and I'm looking forward to mixing up these multiple damage types to exploit what I imagine will be enemy weaknesses. So when we were watching V break out of the All Foods facility, there was a lot of swapping of weapons, but imagine attaching to that swapping of augmentations, ammo types. It can be really flexible, different gameplay. Speaking of weapons, let's talk about weapon stats, which a big shout out to my Twitch chat for helping me out with this one, because I was overthinking it like mad and they helped me out big time. So upon picking up the Kang Tao Type 41, we see DPS among other ratings. Those ratings are PNT for penetration, ACC for accuracy, and ROF for rate of fire. There are also rarity tiers, which I'd like to note that we had seen throughout this entire demo. We see a common, which is gray based off the spider bot, and there is also epic, which was for that Kang Tao Type 41, that is purple. Now if you look at the little notches on the screen, you'll see that there's one more after epic, which I imagine is going to be orange, legendary. Mind you, that's my own bit of speculation. Also, aqua blue stands for rare, which we see multiple times, and then uncommon is green, which we see on V's samurai jacket. Furthermore, we can see additional gun stats when we look at V's pistol to account for recoil, spread, and range. So this is very much a hardcore RPG, as there is a lot to account for here. Now, I promised more ways that this game had brought about immersion, and hidden detail number 5 absolutely brings that into account with the way information is transferred in-game. There is the usage of this thing called a shard, where when V is receiving her mission briefing, she's handed this shard, pops it into her head, learns of all the people of importance like Militech, All Foods Facility, Royce, the ambush on Militech's convoy, but Jackie, who is going to be attending this mission with V, is not there at this point in time to acquire this data. Now, often in video games, when this happens, there's usually a short throwaway cutscene that does not do nearly enough explanation to actually realistically bring that person who's accompanying you into the know well enough for them to go, yeah, I'm gonna risk my life and get shot at for this. However, because of the way that Cyberpunk's universe is structured, we see V go up to Jackie, hand him that very same shard, he pops it in, and now he's on the same page as V. And that is huge because, like I said, it keeps the pacing going, it keeps the narrative going, it keeps you focused on the next objective, not trying to catch up the NPCs around you, which is a huge narrative tool that is very undermined in video games. Back to the gameplay side of things is humanity cost. Now, when we're getting our stuff upgraded by Victor, we see under both optical scanners and the subdermal grip that there is a, quote, humanity cost, end quote. I imagine this is going to be a lot like Prey's leveling system. In Prey, when you started investing in Typhon abilities, there were more Typhons around Talos 1, and on top of that, enemies were stronger. So since this is more along the lines of a hardcore RPG, I imagine as you invest in more of these upgrades, you look more like a cyborg pretty much. The world will react to you in a different way. People will treat you differently. How will companions act with your upgrades? When you exit the Ripper dock the first time, Jackie is quick to compliment your brand new optical scanner. But what happens if you show up with 1,000,001 little attachments on your face, your arms, your legs? Will Jackie react the same? Will people say that you're starting to change? I'm very curious to see how the world will react when that humanity cost goes up. Number 7, the underlying believable organic choices. Now, when Jackie and V are going to spy on the corporate agents, they do note that the vehicle is made of a composite material and there are heavily armed bodyguards nearby. There is one last choice that's offered to the player to back out of this optional objective. Now, the initial back out point was just don't call the corporate agent right away. But if you opt into that, you spy on them, you see this setup, you don't like how it feels, you walk away, and that empowers the player with the feeling that RPGs need to give off more, which is, what would have happened if I went down there? Now, of course, in this gameplay demo, we do see what happens when we go down there. Things get hot real fast. But I imagine this won't be the last time we see these underlying organic choices that happen in conversation that make sense, where if I were in Jackie and V's shoes, you pull up, you look at the situation, you see there are armed thugs, you see a composite vehicle. I don't like that situation. I'm backing out of that, man, and I like how it's presented to the player. Number 8 is the musical transitions in both the corporation interrogation scene as well as the negotiation with Royce. Now, I'm just gonna let these clips roll so you guys get a general idea of exactly what I'm talking about. Hear it one more time, and then I'll add on to why I feel they were so well executed.
Checks out.
You got nothing on me! Nothing! Won't get away with this, you bitch! You're dead!
Somebody shut him up.
Take me home! Now!
All right. I have no idea who you're working for or what you even want, but you better give me something solid or I will end you.
With the corporation interrogation scene, I wanted to note the addition of percussion, which adds intensity, as noted by actually its removal, because the percussion's added when the gun's pointed to you, things are getting intense, the interrogation's not going your way, and once things calm down, the gun's pulled away from your chin, you're unplugged, they're no longer hacking into your network, and we still have a steady droning tone in the background to know that things aren't over yet, but they've calmed down a little bit. Now let's take a listen to the negotiation scene with Royce.
And you positively reek of Militech.
Dexter Deshawn sent me.
Dexter Deshawn. Dreads. Gold plate. Fat old fuck. That him?
We'll pay for the bot and be on our way.
How much you say you had? 50K?
I really liked the use of silence here, which heightened a temporary amount of anxiety. I took note of when I leaned closest into my computer monitor during this scene, and it was right there when Roy started to freak out, and there was this opening that you instantly take, pull out your gun, put it to Royce's chin, the tables have turned, and then the music picks up again. You feel empowered. That's what a lot of this game has been about. Just pure flawless execution on a level we don't see all too often in games of empowering the player, and it's used in ways that aren't so blatantly obvious, like choice and consequence, which we do see on display quite often, but it's a mixture of other elements like audio, the organic underlying choices of being able to walk away or to stay. Number 9 are the perk points, which are added after the street cred increase. So at the end of this mission, V reaches street cred level 2, and it says new perk points are now available. Now I'm going to speculate at this point in time what exactly these perks could be and how they are allocated. The only perks that I think we got a look at were when V was trying to escape the All Foods facility, we could hack our way through a doorway, which required 5 hacking, V only had 1. However, she had 1 engineering, which we only needed 1 to get into this panel to escape through this doorway to our right. One thing I do want to note is when she actually engineered her way into this panel, she acquired parts, which is noted on the bottom left corner of the screen. Perhaps this is hinting at some type of crafting system where we can take these parts, put them together to upgrade current cybernetics attached to us or augment weapons. There's a lot of possibilities there, but it's still something I wanted to point out. More so is that I imagine when you get these perk points, you can put them in hacking, put them in engineering, and so on. However, I do have to say it's hard to predict because the game claims to be having a fluid class system, and I doubt that these perk points are allocated to biostats, which we saw at the start of the demo. Lastly, at number 10, one thing that did keep the gameplay and pacing flowing smoothly is the weapon swaps, which we note at the bottom left corner of the screen. Whenever the player character wanted to switch, you would see X, Y, B. So my guess is that to swap weapons, maybe you'll hold LB and press X, and then boom, your shotgun's out and in your hands. It's not bringing up a giant radio menu in your face telling you, hey, you're swapping weapons now. It's keeping it very much on the fly. Like I said, with the info transformation, the organic choices, the music, a lot of things happening underneath the surface that are natural to the player, that keep things moving forward, that keep you focused on what's important, which is making the right choices, building relationships with characters you care about, that type of stuff. But also the level of accessibility this game offers, where it's very much a hardcore RPG. Even watching it 3 times over now, there are certain choices that overwhelmed me, and you can even see if you watch it on my Twitch VOD, at times I was still trying to figure out what was happening with the story. A lot happens very fast, and it's worth a rewatch at that. Anyway, those are 10 little details I just wanted to highlight that I saw during Cyberpunk 2077's gameplay reveal. I hope you guys are happy with what you had seen and it was worth all the hype that was brought to it at E3. It seems like impressions are incredibly positive, which I can't say I'm too surprised about. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. Are there any other little details that you may have seen throughout the gameplay demo? Fire away in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that as it fuels all the content we create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.